My dear friends, gather around and listen closely, for the tale I am about to tell you is not just a story, it is a warning. A warning that will make you question the things you see, the things you eat, and the people you trust. What if I told you that the suya you've been enjoying, that delicious peppered roasted meat that fills the air with its irresistible aroma, might not be what you think it is? What if I told you that behind the smoky grills and sizzling spices lies a secret so dark, so horrifying, that it will change the way you look at suya forever? This is my story, the story of how myself, Emeka, became entangled in a web of greed and darkness that would destroy not only my life but bring shame and sorrow to an entire community in Abia State. I was no ordinary man. I was a gatesman, a humble servant who stood at the gate of a mansion so grand it seemed to touch the heavens. The mansion belonged to Chief Okoro, a man of immense wealth and influence whose life was filled with luxury, parties, and the company of beautiful women. But while Chief Okoro lived like a king, I could only watch from the shadows, my heart burning with envy and my soul consumed by a desire to have it all. You see, my friends, I was tired of my life of poverty. I was tired of standing at those gates, watching others live the life I could only dream of. I wanted the cars, the mansions, the women, and the power. I wanted to be served, not to serve. And so one fateful day, I made a decision that would change my life forever. Let me take you to that place where wealth and poverty live side by side, separated only by a tall iron gate in the heart of Aba. On one side of this gate stood a mansion so grand, so magnificent, that it seemed to touch the sky. This was the home of Chief Okoro, a man whose riches were the talk of the entire community. His mansion was a palace with walls painted in the finest whites, glistening like pearls under the southeastern sun. The compound was vast, with a driveway so long it could fit 100 cars. And oh, the cars, they were not the kind you see every day. These were the kind that roared like lions and sparkled like diamonds, machines of power and prestige. Inside the mansion, life was a constant celebration. The air was always filled with the sound of high-life music, the clinking of glasses, and the laughter of curvy women dressed in the finest clothes money could buy. These women came and went, their heels clicking on the marble floors, their perfumes lingering in the air like a sweet, intoxicating spell. Chief Okoro, a man of only 30 years, lived like a king. He was young, flamboyant, and full of life. But there was something about him, something mysterious, something that made people whisper behind his back. They said his wealth was not ordinary, that it came from a place darker than the night. But who would dare question a man like Chief Okoro? He was untouchable, a god in his own right. Now, on the other side of the iron gate stood a small, weathered gatehouse. This was my world, I, Emeka, a man of 40 years who had spent his life opening and closing that gate for others. My home was no palace, it was a tiny room with cracked walls and a leaking roof, a place where the wind howled through the gaps and the rain turned the floor to mud. My life was simple, but not by choice. I was a gatesman, a servant, a man who watched the world of luxury from the shadows, my heart heavy with envy. Every day, I stood at that gate, watching the flashy cars drive in and out, watching the beautiful women laugh and dance, watching Chief Okoro live the life I could only dream of. And oh, how I dreamed. I dreamed of wearing fine clothes, of driving those roaring cars, of living in a mansion where the walls did not crack and the roof did not leak. I dreamed of being served, not serving. But dreams, my friends, are a cruel thing when they are out of reach. They burn in the heart like a fire, and for me, that fire was turning into desperation. You see, Chief Okoro paid me well enough for a gatesman, but what is well when your heart craves more? What is enough when you want the world? My salary could buy me food, yes, and maybe a new shirt once in a while, but it could not buy me the life I wanted. It could not buy me the respect, the power, the freedom I longed for. And so, every day as I stood at that gate, my envy grew. It grew like a weed, choking the little contentment I had left. I began to resent the very man who paid me, the man whose life I coveted. But my friends, envy is a dangerous thing. It blinds the eyes and deafens the ears. It makes a man forget who he is and what he stands for. And for me, it was about to lead me down a path from which there would be no return. I had reached the end of my patience. Day after day, I stood at the gate of Chief Okoro's mansion, watching the life I so desperately wanted slip further and further out of reach. The cars, the women, the parties, the power, it was all there, just beyond my grasp. And so one evening, as the sun dipped low and the shadows stretched long across the compound, I made a decision. I would no longer stand in silence. I would no longer watch from the sidelines. I would ask Chief Okoro for help, no matter the cost. When the moment came, my heart pounded like a talking drum. I approached the young chief with hesitant steps, my head bowed low, my voice trembling with desperation. "Oga," I began, my words heavy with longing, "I have served you faithfully for many years. I have opened your gates, guarded your home, and watched over your property. But Oga, my life is empty. I am tired of being poor. I want to be like you. I want to be rich." Chief Okoro, seated on his grand leather chair, looked up from his glass of wine. His eyes narrowed, and his lips curled into a smirk. "Emeka," he said, his voice sharp and mocking, "do you know what you are asking? Do you think wealth falls from the sky like rain? Do you think it is handed out to beggars at the gate?" His laughter echoed, a hollow sound that reverberated through the room. "You are a gatesman. That is your place. Be content with it." My face burned with shame, but I did not back down. "Oga, I am ready to do anything you ask of me. Just show me the way." Chief Okoro waved me off with a dismissive hand, and I left the room, my heart heavy with disappointment. But days later, something changed. Chief Okoro called for me. The message came early in the morning, delivered by one of his housemates. "Oga wants to see you in the sitting room," she said. My heart raced. What could this mean? Was this my chance? When I entered the sitting room, Chief Okoro was waiting for me, seated in his usual chair, a slight smile playing on his lips. "Emeka," he began, his tone unusually calm, "I have been thinking about your request. You say you want to be rich? You say you are ready to do anything. Is that still true?" I nodded eagerly. "Yes, Oga. I am ready." Chief Okoro leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Good, because I have a business for you. A Suya business. I will set it up for you, and it will make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. But this is no ordinary Suya business. The meat you will sell will not come from cows or goats. It will come from humans." The words hit me like a thunderclap. I froze, my mind struggling to process what I had just heard. "Human flesh." I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Yes," Chief Okoro replied, his tone as casual as if he were discussing the weather. "My boys will handle everything. They will bring you the meat. All you have to do is prepare it, grill it, and sell it. The people will never know. And in return, you will receive riches beyond your imagination, 100 times your current salary." My stomach churned. I felt sick, disgusted, horrified. "Oga, this is evil," I stammered. "How can you ask me to do such a thing?" Chief Okoro's smile faded, and his eyes hardened. "You said you were ready to do anything. Was that a lie? Do you want to remain a poor gatesman for the rest of your life, or do you want to be rich? The choice is yours." My mind was a storm of conflicting emotions. My conscience screamed at me to walk away, to refuse, to run as far as I could from this madness. But then I thought of the money, the cars, the mansion, the women, the life I had always dreamed of, the life I could finally have. Slowly, the voice of my conscience grew quieter, drowned out by the voice of my greed. "I will do it," I said at last, my voice barely above a whisper. "I will do it." Chief Okoro leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile spreading across his face. "Good," he said. "You have made the right choice." But what I did not know was that this choice would lead me down a path darker than I could ever imagine, a path that would not only destroy me but also bring untold suffering to the people I was about to deceive. The wheels of fate had been set in motion, and there was no turning back. And so the dark business began. Early each morning, before the first ray of sunlight touched the earth, Chief Okoro's men would arrive at my small suya spot in the bustling Orioria market. They came in silence, their faces hard and unreadable, carrying heavy black bags that reeked of something foul. They would drop the bags at the back of my shop and disappear into the shadows as quickly as they had come. I, my hands trembling but my heart hardened by greed, would open the bags and stare at the contents, freshly cut human flesh, still red and raw. The sight of it was enough to churn the stomach of any ordinary man, but I was no longer an ordinary man. I had made my choice, and there was no turning back. I would set to work immediately, my hands moving with a precision born of desperation. I marinated the flesh in a mixture of spices, pepper, ginger, garlic, and a secret blend that gave the suya its irresistible flavor. The aroma would rise into the air, rich and tantalizing, masking the horror of what lay beneath. By the time the sun was high in the sky, the meat would be skewered and ready for the grill. And when the flames kissed the flesh, turning it golden brown, the scent would drift through the neighborhood, drawing people like moths to a flame. By evening, my suya spot would be alive with activity. Men, women, and children would line up, their mouths watering, their eyes fixed on the sizzling meat. Emeka suya is the best in ABA, they would say, their voices filled with excitement. The taste is like nothing we've ever had before. And indeed it was. The suya was tender, flavorful, and unlike anything they had ever eaten. They came in droves, night after night, their narrow notes clutched tightly in their hands, eager to taste the delicacy that had become the talk of the town. But none of them knew the truth. None of them knew that the meat they were eating was not from cows or goats or any other animal. None of them knew that with every bite, they were consuming something far more sinister. And as my business grew, so did my wealth. I bought new clothes, fine shoes, and even a small car. For the first time in my life, I felt like a man of importance. But deep down, in the quiet moments when I was alone, I could feel the weight of what I had done pressing down on me like a heavy stone. I tried to silence the voice of my conscience, but it was always there, whispering, reminding me of the price I had paid for my newfound wealth. Yet the true darkness of this business was not in the flesh itself, but in the motive behind it. You see, Chief Okoro was not just a man of wealth, he was a man of power, a man who sought control over everything and everyone around him. And this suya business was not just about money, it was about something far more sinister. Chief Okoro's juju man in Ghana had told him of a ritual so dark and so powerful that it could bind the souls of an entire community to his will. The ritual required human flesh not just to be consumed, but to be consumed willingly, unknowingly, by the people of the town. And with every bite they took, their souls would become tied to Chief Okoro. They would bend to his will, their lives forever under his control. This would guarantee their loyalty and support during the next election. This was the true purpose of the suya business. It was not just a means to wealth, it was a means to power. And I, blinded by my greed, had become the instrument of this dark plan. I was the one who prepared the meat, who sold it to the people, who unknowingly helped Chief Okoro tighten his grip on the town. And as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, my business flourished. But with every passing day, the darkness grew, spreading like a shadow over ABA, unseen but ever present, waiting for the moment when it would reveal itself in full. And so the stage was set. The people feasted, unaware of the horror they were consuming. I counted my money, trying to ignore the growing unease in my heart. And Chief Okoro watched from the shadows, his plan unfolding exactly as he had intended. But as with all things born of darkness, this business could not last forever. The truth, as they say, has a way of coming to light. And when it did, ABA would never be the same again. The days of my suya business were numbered, though neither Chief Okoro nor I could see the storm that was brewing. For months, the people of ABA had flocked to my suya spot, unaware of the dark secret behind the delicacy they so eagerly devoured. But secrets, no matter how deeply buried, have a way of rising to the surface. And so it began with a whisper, a quiet voice in the shadows, a whistleblower who could no longer bear the weight of what they knew. The tip came to the police in the early hours of the morning. A voice, trembling but resolute, spoke of strange activities at Chief Okoro's mansion. The caller described the black bags that arrived at the gate every morning, carried by men who moved like ghosts, their faces hidden in the dim light of dawn. They spoke of the whispers, the rumors that had begun to spread among the staff, and the ominous air that hung over the mansion like a dark cloud. The police, skeptical at first, decided to investigate. After all, Chief Okoro was a man of influence, a man who could make problems disappear with a wave of his hand. But this time, the whispers were too loud to ignore. The raid was swift and unexpected. Just as the first light of day began to creep over the horizon, the police descended on my Suya spot. They moved with precision, their faces grim, their eyes scanning every corner for evidence. And there, in the back of the shop, they found me. I stood frozen, my hands stained red, a knife in one hand and a slab of fresh meat on the table before me. But this was no ordinary meat. The officers knew it the moment they saw it, the shape, the texture. It was unmistakable. This was human flesh. The room fell silent, the air thick with shock and horror. One of the officers stepped forward, his voice shaking as he asked, "Emeka, what is this?" But I could not speak. My mouth open and closed, my eyes wide with fear, my body trembling as if the weight of my sins had finally crushed me. The officers moved quickly, securing the evidence, placing me in handcuffs, and leading me away. Outside, a crowd had begun to gather, drawn by the commotion. They watched in stunned silence as I was led to the waiting police van, my head bowed, my face a mask of shame. The news spread faster than harmattan wind, carrying with it a tale so dark, so horrifying, that it left the entire community in shock. People gathered in small groups, whispering in disbelief, their voices trembling with anger and fear. "Is it true?" they asked one another. "Did we really eat human flesh?" The thought alone was enough to make stomachs churn and hearts race. Mothers clutched their children tightly, elders shook their heads in sorrow, and the once bustling streets of Aba fell silent, as if the very air had been tainted by the revelation. But silence did not last long. Outrage soon replaced disbelief, and the people's anger turned toward the man they once admired, Chief Okoro. The man who had thrown lavish parties, driven flashy cars, and lived a life of unimaginable luxury was now revealed to be the architect of their betrayal. The youth of Aba, their hearts burning with fury, marched to Chief Okoro's mansion. They carried sticks, stones, and torches, their voices rising in chants of anger and demands for justice. When they arrived, they found the mansion empty, its gates locked, its owner nowhere to be found. But this did not stop them. They set the mansion ablaze, the flames consuming the walls, the furniture, and the memories of the man who had deceived them. His cars, symbols of his wealth and power, were reduced to ashes, their once shiny surfaces now blackened and twisted. As the fire raged, the people turned their attention to me, the man who had been caught red-handed, the man who had prepared the suya they had unknowingly consumed. My trial was swift, the evidence against me undeniable. In the courtroom, I stood with my head bowed, my face a mask of regret and shame. I confessed to everything, the deal I had made with Chief Okoro, the deliveries of human flesh, the preparation of the suya. My voice trembled as I spoke, my words heavy with guilt. I was blinded by greed, I said. I wanted wealth, power, and respect. But I see now that I have lost everything. The judge's voice was firm as he delivered the sentence, life imprisonment. I was led away in handcuffs, my once hopeful dreams now shattered, my life reduced to a cautionary tale. From a humble gatesman to a man consumed by greed, my downfall was complete. And as I sat in my prison cell, I was left to reflect on the choices that had brought me there, the lives I had destroyed, and the price I had paid for my ambition. But what of Chief Okoro, the man who had orchestrated the entire scheme? The man whose greed and hunger for power had set everything in motion. By the time the police arrived at his mansion, he was gone. He had fled, disappearing into the shadows like a ghost, leaving behind only the ruins of his once grand life. Rumors spread of his whereabouts. Some said he had crossed the border to Cameroon, others claimed he was hiding in Lagos, protected by his wealth and connections. But wherever he was, one thing was certain, the people would not rest until he was brought to justice. The search for Chief Okoro continues to this day. His name lingers on the lips of those he betrayed. The community, though scarred by the events, has vowed never to forget. They tell the story of Emeka and Chief Okoro as a warning, a reminder of the dangers of greed and the darkness that can consume a man's soul. And so the tale lives on, a shadow over Aba, a lesson for all who hear it. Wealth gained through evil will never bring peace, and the truth, no matter how deeply buried, will always find its way to the light. And so, my friends, my tale comes to an end, but the lessons it carries will echo for generations. This is not just a story of greed and betrayal, it is a mirror reflecting the choices we make and the paths we choose to follow. My desire for quick wealth blinded me to the cost of my actions. I traded my integrity, my peace, and my soul for riches that brought me nothing but ruin. Chief Okoro, too, sought power through evil means, and though he escaped the hands of justice, his name is now a curse, his legacy one of shame and destruction. This story reminds us that greed is a fire, it burns bright, but it consumes everything in its path. The desire for quick wealth, for shortcuts to success, often leads to devastating consequences. True wealth, my friends, is not found in gold or mansions or flashy cars. It is found in integrity, in hard work, and in the peace that comes from knowing you have done what is right. But now I ask you, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have walked away, or would you have been tempted by the promise of riches? Remember, the choices we make today shape the stories we tell tomorrow.